Welcome, everyone, to Southern Virginia University Men's Lacrosse here from the fields at Southern Virginia University. I'm Jim Bresnahan, joined here by Jake McMahon of the fields at Southern Virginia University, ready to bring you men's lacrosse action as the Knights of Southern Virginia University get ready to host the Tigers of Hampden-Sydney. Southern Virginia 3-2 on the season, facing a Hampden-Sydney team that is 4-3 on the season. And, Jake, the Tigers have played a really tough schedule.
Absolutely, and actually taking on a couple Capital Athletic Conference foes, considering the fact that Hampden-Sydney is in the ODAC. Hampden-Sydney has taken on Mary Washington, defeating Mary Washington 13-9, and a formidable foe in Christopher Newport University, beating the captains of Christopher Newport 13-10 this season already, and also playing ranked Cabrini, ranked number 6 in the country, and losing 6-15. But as you said, Jim, playing a pretty tough schedule thus far.
And most recently, playing a very good Washington Elite team, playing them pretty tough, only losing 12-9, whereas the Knights have been playing pretty well of late as well. They're 3-2, and coming off a tough 17-15 loss to the Merchant Marine, team that's going to probably have a great season this year. They won 10 games last year, and the Knights battled them tooth for the nail, really, Jake. I mean, again, several times in the latter stages of that game, the Knights had tied that game. They just never could get over the hump and take the lead against Merchant Marine.
For those of you that joined us last week, Merchant Marine played extremely physically against the Knights, and the Knights have had 1 week exactly to the day to prepare for this Hampden-Sydney team, who will be probably equally as physical. And both teams looking to exploit that physicality in such frigid temperatures today, Jim. It's about 32 degrees outside, and as you can see, a lot of the players bundling up under their shorts and jerseys.
And some good news there. You see also number 27, Anthony Good, who has been injured really throughout the early part of this season. Great to see him ready to go, it looks like.
Absolutely. Anthony Good, a great offensive asset for the Knights. You saw lots of offensive production so far this year from Casey Rich, naturally, and from freshman Sean Lamb. It will be nice to have Anthony Good up front, being able to create goal-scoring opportunities for the Knights as well.
And needless to say, you don't see anybody in shorts. They're all ready for the weather today. It's not just the cold temperatures, with temperatures basically in the 30s and probably headed down into the teens later on this evening, but it's the high winds. So the players today have to deal with the cold temperatures and those winds. And the winds, I would imagine, you wonder how that's going to impact play today.
Luckily, the lacrosse ball is pretty dense, Jim. You don't imagine that the wind is going to play a massive role in the passing game, although it might cause a few problems. Certainly, probably the largest problem the wind might cause for these players is communication. Being up here in the fields and at high elevation, the wind can be very loud and can hinder communication, which is so pivotal in the game of lacrosse.
And the Knights will really work on their face-off, the draw part of the game too. And you can see right there the Knights are going to start things off with Logan Lund ready to go. Logan Lund has done relatively well with face-offs this season. But then again, Jake, as we heard after the Merchant Marine game from Jason Lamb, the head coach of the Knights, when you are involved in a draw, you've got to win it, and then you've got to be able to escape. You've got to maintain possession of the ball after you win the draw, and that was a problem against Merchant Marine, basically because Merchant Marine was really ganging up on Logan physically, sometimes 2, sometimes 3 players against one. And that's going to be a concern, I would imagine, going forward.
And you can see right there off that initial face-off, Hampden-Sydney a little less aggressive in attacking Logan Lund than the Merchant Marine Academy. But nonetheless, the Tigers come off with first possession.
Several Tigers to be concerned about today. Number 5, I believe, Chandler Shaheen, leads them in scoring. But they have a pretty balanced scoring attack.
They do. Chandler Shaheen with 20 goals on the season. Hunter Brown, number 7, 14 goals. Ian Levin, number 11, with 13 goals. And then you have Connor Poole with 10 goals and Duncan Morris with 11 goals. And then you have Jack Detzer with only 2 goals, but you can't forget about him as he leads the Tigers by a long shot with regard to assists.
And, Jake, the Knights are starting Carson Franklin, the freshman, in goal today. Just a couple of days ago, they went with Garrison Cook. And now they're back to Franklin, who's been getting a lot of the starts here in the last 3-4 games.
And as Coach Lamb mentioned during his post-game interview during our last game, Coach Lamb certainly trying to figure out the goalkeeper situation for his team right off the bat.
And right off the bat, a goal for Hampden-Sydney, as that is put in by Hunter Brown. Brown with his 15th goal of the season. So it didn't take very long for Hampden-Sydney to get on the board here in the first quarter.
And that was just a well-spotted shot right there by Brown as he went right between the legs of Carson Franklin for the Tigers' first goal.
Only took a little over a minute, 63 seconds, for Hampden-Sydney to pick up its first goal. And now we'll see if the Knights can try to gain possession and fight back.
And it looks like the Tigers have elected to take number 41, Wilson Booth, to the faceoffs to start off this game today. Booth with significant success on the faceoffs this year, facing off well over 500 at now 38-28 on the season. But this time the Knights will come off with the faceoff now 1-1.
So we'll see if the Knights can go right onto the attack here offensively and try to tie this game after the Hunter Brown goal. This is Casey Rich splitting defenders on the left side. Casey takes the shot, sails to the left.
And the ball goes into the back of the net. I'm not sure, Jim, who actually shot that ball.
It did go in. It looks like maybe Sean Lamb.
And it looks like Sean Lamb did come off of, I didn't see exactly what happened. Casey Rich fought off the defender one-on-one, went with that right-handed shot towards what looked like off of the left post of the goal. I'm not sure if it deflected off the goalie or off the post, but nonetheless looks like Sean Lamb with a quick scoop and score.
And the Knights get a very impressive goal, and so they come right back after the Hampden-Sydney goal to even this game at 1. So Southern Virginia and the Tigers of Hampden-Sydney all even here at 1. We have played just over a minute and a half. Logan Lund tries to win the draw. Had the ball momentarily, couldn't scoop it up. Battle for the ball. Still battling. Out there Brady Cook also battling for it. And finally it looks like the Tigers are going to come away with it.
And it almost looked a little bit more like a rugby scrum going on there for a second, Jim.
Neither team was able to scoop it up, and that's no easy task, especially when you've got two or three defensive players around you.
And as you're allowed to use your feet to kick the ball around, that ball is moving at 100 miles an hour under 5 guys right there. It's really hard to come up with it.
All even at 1 here. Hunter Brown had the goal for Hampden-Sydney. It looks like Lamb did for the Knights. And now Hampden-Sydney is on the attack. This is Shasheen, number 5. Hampden-Sydney simply moving the ball around the perimeter, looking for an opening. Good pass to Shasheen there. His shot sails off to the right, though.
Shaheen looking for that right-handed shot, looking for the upper right corner of the goal.
And getting free inside for the goal is Duncan Morris. And Morris racks up his 12th goal of the season, and just like that, it is Hampden-Sydney back on top here, 2-1.
And it looks like Matt Gowdy, number 15 for the Knights, just got caught sleeping there on the right side of the goal for a split second. You saw right as the ball landed in the net of Duncan Morris there, Matt Gowdy was on it, but just too little too late for the Knights as it was number 8, Duncan Morris, with the point-blank shot into the goal.
Well, moving the ball around the perimeter like the Tigers have been doing, it kind of does lull the defense to sleep. Somebody sneaks in from behind, and you got to be careful.
And looks like the Tigers right now are doing a pretty good job, Jim, of moving the ball around, especially around the perimeter, and just working it, playing pretty methodically and patiently thus far.
So the Tigers quickly retake the lead in this first quarter, 2-1. Logan Lund loses the draw. Tigers on the attack again. And the way they've been successful here, Jake, in shooting so far here in the first quarter, it's going to be a long day potentially for the Knights if they keep losing the draws.
Absolutely. The name of the game against Merchant Marine Academy was possessions, Jim, and you imagine that it's probably similar in almost every game. In order to score goals, you have to give your offense a chance, and that's the game of possession. And
right now the Knights are trying to, for the first time this first quarter, be successful on defense. As Shaheen's shot was no good, but it is going to be retrieved by Hampden-Sydney. One thing's for sure, Jake, today we've got to salute the fans who came out for this game under rough weather conditions and our camera operators, too, out there.
Absolutely. You kind of separate the boys from the men, the girls from the women in conditions like this, and you got to salute the real loyal fans for being out here.
Good block there by the Knights, but still possessed by the Tigers. Shaheen's got it now, number 5 for the Tigers. Works it over to the right side.
And they got to watch Morris over there lurking on the right side of the post, right behind Greg Gowdy, who's got an eye on him, but you got to look for that.
Shot is taken off to the right. Of course, that was something Guilford a few weeks back on their 14-4 win over the Knights. They were able to keep folks down towards the cage, and that really worked out well for Guilford. So maybe Hampden-Sydney has seen that film. Pass over to the right side. Quick shot was taken, blocked away, and Franklin comes up with the save. And he is able to get it over to a teammate. So a good play there by the freshman Carson Franklin, the goalkeeper for the Knights. Now we'll see if the Knights can work it out of their defensive area.
Franklin was looking for an opportunity for the Knights to get a clearance here.
Good move by Tunick as he tries to move upfield. Trying to quickly get it into the attack area.
And it looks like we'll have a foul against the Knights there as they give possession back to the Tigers.
So the Knights a chance to tie. Quickly back the other way, though, come the Tigers. And fortunately for them, it was Duncan Morris on the scene to retrieve that loose ball.
And it's a player like number 7, Hunter Brown, for the Tigers that you got to watch out as he's really dangerous with that left-handed shot. There gets the assist to Duncan Morris, who's going to pick up his second goal of the game from that right side. Yeah. Very similar to the second goal for Hampden-Sydney.
Morris now with 13 goals on the season, and Hampden-Sydney has jumped out to a 3-1 lead here.
The Knights going to have to figure it out defensively, maybe play a little bit more aggressively. You know, Jim, I'm no lacrosse expert by any stretch of the imagination, but what becomes starkly obvious is that the Knights defense has to produce more opportunities for the offense to create goal-scoring opportunities, and right now Hampden-Sydney is dominating the possession thus far in this game.
Yeah, Hampden-Sydney has been able to win the draws, and they've been able, when they've had possession, to rack up some goals, and they're going to get this possession with a 3-1 lead.
And out of the 4 or 5 faceoffs that we've seen today, Jim, I think only 1 or 2 of them have been won cleanly. It looks like we've had a lot of faceoff fouls. They've gone both ways, but certainly an interesting dynamic.
Coach Jason Lamb hoping his defense can rise to the occasion here and stop Hampden-Sydney. Otherwise, the Tigers could be in line here to take a 3-goal lead early in this first quarter. Hampden-Sydney came into the action today in 7 games with 80 goals. I believe the Knights had 60 goals in their 5 games. Pass deflected off the Tiger. That one right off John Burke. And so the Knights will get it on the Tiger turnover. This is Brady Cook working from defense to the attack area.
And it looks like they're going to call that a pass from Brady Cook rather than a shot. You can see Sean Lamb with the stick extended there, hoping to maybe maintain possession when the referee's thinking that it was a shot by the Knights rather than a pass, but the Knights will have another turnover.
As a result, the Tigers get it right back, and that is a crucial situation. That's a couple of times now down here, Jake, in the offensive area where the Knights have come up empty.
And it doesn't happen too frequently, but you have to think that Hampden-Sydney is well aware of who the goal scorers are for the Knights. And as Coach Lane mentioned in his post-game interview following the game against the United States Merchant Marine Academy, it can be dangerous when you have only 1 or 2 guys creating the majority of the offensive production, in that a defense can just shut down 1 or 2 guys and effectively shut down your entire defense. Whereas with this Hampden-Sydney office, you have about 5 or 6 guys who are creating almost equal goal-scoring load for the Tigers.
Yeah, looking at the stat sheet, they've got at least 6 guys who have double figures in goals coming into the action today. That's Shaheen with it, number 5. He goes back over to the left.
So it's going to become the Knights to get Spencer Tunick involved, to get Anthony Good involved, to get Brady Cook involved, in order to kind of divvy out this goal-scoring production for the Knights in order to make them even more dangerous and more complex to any defense they come up against.
Left side goal, shot, score by Hunter Brown.
And that's that left-handed shot that we talked about being so dangerous. Is those left-handed shots you just don't intuitively guard as well because you're just not as used to guarding them. And so you have to be extra aware of those left-handed players who can be so dangerous. Hunter Brown drawing blood right there with his first goal of the game.
That's 15 for him on the season. Hampden-Sydney came into today with 5 scorers who had double figures in goals, and they have jumped on top here 4-1 with 7:33 to go. And you wonder if this continues, Jake, how much longer Jason Lamb, the head coach of the Knights, might go before he calls a timeout and tries to talk over some defensive plans as Hampden-Sydney wins another draw. Been a rough first quarter for Carson Franklin. He's really being manhandled after making the pickup. Hampden-Sydney trying to take it away with Franklin out of the goal. And now the Knights will have it. Knights working from defense to the attack area. Casey Rich fires the shot and scores.
That's a beautiful left-handed shot by Casey Rich. He is a right-handed, he's right-hand dominant. However, he's such a good player, Jim, that he can make it happen on both sides and does so with the left hand there.
And the Knights really needed that score. Needed the defensive stop on the one end and then the goal on the other end to shave that Hampden-Sydney 4-1 lead down to 4-2.
And as long as the Knights can get quick counter possessions just like that and kind of get numbers on the offensive side, the Knights can have a lot of success, especially with players like Casey Rich who are so good one-on-one. As long as they're not outnumbered on the defensive side of things, the Knights could really draw some serious blood from the Tigers on the offensive side as long as they can do so quickly and with numbers.
And now Logan Lund will try to win the draw here, and looks like he will. And that was good to see. Now we'll see if the Knights can go on the offensive attack here and maybe try to climb within one. Lamb falls down, loses the ball. Hampden-Sydney with the takeaway. Knights have a couple of goals, but they also have at least 2, maybe 3 wasted opportunities so far in this first quarter after possessing the ball, Jake, and that's got to be frustrating for Coach Lamb. Nice block there by Franklin, the goalkeeper for the Knights. It's stolen away, the pass, though, by Hampden-Sydney, and another block by Franklin. Boy, almost a disastrous turnover there.
That could have been extremely dangerous and not in favor of the Knights, as it was number 11, Ian Levin, who just took the rip there, looking for the bounce shot and deflected off the top crossbar of the goal. But it looked like some sort of foul happened, and the Knights will regain possession.
Now the Knights will go on the attack.
And it's number 17, Isaac DeJarlis, the freshman from West Haven, Utah, with the ball. And he can prove to be dangerous as well on the offensive side, Jim.
Yeah, DeJarlis, he came in to the game today. Still looking for his first goal, but he's been active offensively. Anthony Good, you see him out there right in front of the goal, number 27. Good to see him back in action. Right now, Lamb's got it behind the goal. And apparently the ball will go over to Hampden-Sydney. Several times here in this first quarter, the Knights have had it and turned it over. Hampden-Sydney trying to go on the attack to the offensive area with a 2-goal lead here. Tigers in no hurry to go from defense to their offensive attack area. Long pass upfield by the goalkeeper for Hampden-Sydney. Weather has certainly impacted. There's a penalty.
And it looks like the call will be too many people in the attacking area against Hampden-Sydney.
So each team's had its mistakes in the offensive area. Hampden-Sydney with a 2-goal lead. See if the Knights can get a goal here and get a little closer. They go over to Cook. Brady Cook with the shot and a save by the Hampden-Sydney goalkeeper.
And that was a pretty good shot there by Brady Cook. An equally good save by Hampden-Sydney.
Yeah, Mitch Renfro, the sophomore goalkeeper, he's their top goalkeeper. He's played 405 of the 420 minutes of game action. 464 save percentage for Renfro.
Certainly seems like Hampden-Sydney knows exactly who their goalkeeper is, Jim. That's a lot of playing time.
Yeah, only 5 minutes where he hasn't been out there. Whereas for the Knights, Franklin's got 158. Cook's got 10 minutes. Hervé's got just under 5 minutes. 4-2 lead for the Tigers. And they've been able to do this throughout this first quarter, move patiently around the perimeter. Maybe at times hoping to sneak someone inside, close to the cage. Duncan Morris and Hunter Brown have been two of the Tigers that have been able to get it into the goal, but shot missed there right there by the Tigers, by Hunter Brown, but he comes up with a loose ball. Nice pass, point-blank shot, blocked away. Not sure if that was blocked by Franklin or maybe Greg Gowdy. We were talking about the weather, though, Jake, and baseball was supposed to play today. That game against Frostburg was wiped out. And, of course, softball yesterday had a doubleheader wiped out. They'll be playing Thursday on the road at Sweetbriar. Looked like maybe for the Knights, Giroux was able to block that, and he kind of bent over, maybe in pain from blocking that shot.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't feel good to be beamed with a lacrosse ball at that speed and from that close. You know? At these temperatures, you just keep adding it to the list of reasons why it's not going to feel good. As you could see, Kiwi Giroux probably a mere 3 feet from the shot when it happened, and the Tigers unloaded on that one.
Sacrificing his body there for the team, for the good of the Knights.
And with success, yeah, like you said.
The only sport the Knights are going to have probably no problems with the temperatures this week will be the women's lacrosse team. I guess they're in South Carolina playing, I believe, today and tomorrow.
Yeah, over in Hilton Head, South Carolina, with the good spring break trip. Southern Virginia University is on spring break this week.
I haven't checked the Hilton Head forecast. For all I know, it could be pouring rain. But I doubt it's 35 degrees.
Your guess is as good as mine. But I know a lot of the students here have been feeling gypped this week, Jim, as they get on their spring break, and next thing you know, it's feeling like January, or what January should have felt like.
Even though we got it off pretty lightly on Monday night and Tuesday with the snow, we're supposed to maybe go to, 5 or 8 inches, ended up probably getting no more than 1 or 2 inches. Knights trying to pick up the loose ball. Under 2 minutes to go in this first quarter. Knights have been able to stem the tie a little bit, falling behind 4-1, but again getting a goal. Now 4-2. Here's Lamb. Couldn't get the shot to go. He had a good look at it, though. And Renfro makes the save. Boy, Lamb had a great look at a shot that time.
And he went with that left-handed shot again, and Renfro with the beautiful save. So far doing a lot on Hampden-Sydney's side of on Hampden-Sydney's defensive side to really prevent the Knights from getting some pretty good shots in the back of the net.
Now the Tigers on the move quickly, but the Knights are able to set up defensively. And now we'll see if the Tigers patiently maybe look for the last shot of the quarter. Here's Shaheen out front, draws a double team. Good defense by the Knights that time as Duncan Morris came in from that right side, and it looked like he had a little bit of an opening, but the Knights were able to collapse quickly defensively.
The Knights got away with one there as Morris had another point-blank shot, but just sailed it way over the goal. And he knew he should have had that one. But the Knights lived to see another day, and
that time, no Not the situation as Morris slides in again from the right side that time and was able to get past the defender and get the goal to make it 5-2.
And that's now 3 goals that have happened almost in the identical spot by number 8, Duncan Morris, who's just been lurking on the right post there.
It does remind me of the Guilford game where they were kind of lurking on the post a little bit too.
Very similar, and you saw Merchant Marine score a couple goals right off the bat in the same way, but the Knights really started shutting that down after the first quarter. And probably the Knights will make the same adjustment. Coach Lamb is such a good lacrosse coach. You know he's seeing it, and will make that adjustment after the first quarter. But the Knights have to be careful not to let themselves get too far behind, even after 1 quarter of play.
Knights will try to win the draw, but it's Hampden-Sydney coming away with it. Lund trying to jar the ball loose from Wilson Booth, but it's going to be Hampden-Sydney Tigers' ball. Now, let's see here. Timeout taken? Hampden-Sydney will take a timeout with 38 seconds to go, and we're going to break away here in just a few seconds. But 38 seconds to go, and obviously, Jake, they took that timeout to maybe talk about maybe a last shot here in the last 38 seconds.
Yeah, and Coach Lamb's probably going to be talking a lot of defense here to make sure that, or it looks like he's given Coach Scotty Winterton the time here during this timeout to talk maybe a little bit of defense. But the Knights going to look to take at least one more shot opportunity. But in order to do so, Jim, as we've talked about thus far, the defense got to step up, play a little physically, and find ways to get the ball turned over. And we'll talk a little bit more after these messages about what the Knights will do here in the close of the first quarter.
I felt like I didn't just want to learn how to create art, I wanted to know what to create art about. At Southern Virginia, you're exposed to great art and ideas, getting the best of basically what the whole world has to offer. Professor Himes helps me so when I do create art, it can connect with other people. I don't want to just be a good artist, I want to be a good person who is an artist. I'm Corey Egbert and I'm a Knight.
Okay, with 38 seconds left again here in the first quarter, Jim Bresnahan, Jacob Bang back here with you at the fields at Southern Virginia University. And after the timeout, Hampden-Sydney will go to work here in the final few seconds of the first quarter trying to get their 6th goal of the game. Hampden-Sydney trying to work the clock down and look for the best opportunity they can find. Knights really watching both sides of the cage, and they get the steal. Turnover by Hampden-Sydney. With just 10 seconds to go.
And Franklin going to have to work fast here, Jim.
Might be more concerned about just making sure he doesn't turn it over as opposed to getting it upfield. And there's a steal by Hampden-Sydney. That's going to be it for the first quarter. So 1 quarter is in the book. Hampden-Sydney jumped out for 1 lead. And right now the Tigers are on top here at the end of 1 quarter, Jake, 5-2.
And the Knights were able to complete their objective there at the end of the first quarter, Jim, as Hampden-Sydney certainly took that timeout to look for at least one more goal-scoring opportunity prior to the end of the first quarter, try to draw up a play, but the Knights able to thwart that, due in part to Hampden-Sydney passing error. But nonetheless, the Knights able to create that pressure, which led to the error, and go down only 3 points at the end of the first quarter, looking to make some adjustments.
What do you see as the keys maybe going forward here, perhaps defensively, and as you mentioned earlier, Jake, trying to get more and more people involved in the offense?
Well, it's hard to say, just play more physically, although physicality can certainly create problems on the defensive side of things. Once you start playing overly physically, you might start leaving gaps open in the defense. So I'll be interested to see what Coach Lamb does here on the defensive side of things especially. But what's for certain is that the defense needs to create more turnovers and allow the offense to have more chances on goal. On the offensive side of things, the Knights need to not turn the ball over. We saw too many possessions there in the first quarter where the Knights turned the ball over on the offensive side where they might be tied 5-5 or maybe only down 4-5 going into the first quarter. So when the Knights do get those offensive possessions, Jim, they need to really make them count. And
I'm sure the coach will be the first one to say, let's look forward, not look backwards. But if you lose a game like this, and again, 4 quarters, so we'll see if the Knights are able to correct that, the missed opportunities on offense you were talking about. But if you lose a game like this, you start looking back at those missed opportunities and wonder if that could have made the difference.
Absolutely. And the Knights know that they have a very mature front line, especially on the offensive side of things, and they'll be able to make those adjustments as long as they're given those opportunities to create goals.
And hopefully Logan Lund going forward here in the second period can start to win more draws, because that's been another area where Hampden-Sydney seems to really dominate with Wilson Booth, the junior. And Booth comes away with that draw very quickly, getting it into the offensive attack area for Hampden-Sydney. So the Tigers have really dominated at times when it comes to the draws today. And just like that, the Tigers will try to start the second period with a score to maybe take their biggest lead so far today, 4 goals. Their top goal scorer, number 5, Shaheen, is right out there in the middle. I think he's only taken 1 or 2 shots. Doesn't have any goals so far.
No, the Tigers really working it around, and the Knights able to create the pressure necessary to create bad passing by the Tigers, and they'll get the turnover. And that's probably exactly what Coach Lamb was looking for in the adjustment they tried to make, was not necessarily go after them physically to create gaps in the defense, but just put enough pressure on them to where they'll create the mistakes themselves.
Derek Marks passing over to Franklin, the goalkeeper. Knights trying to get it out of their defensive area right now. Trying to work it upfield, down by 3.
And number 4, Greg Gowdy, back there really trying to get the ball out.
Hampden-Sydney really aggressive on defense. A chasing man-to-man defense. And it looks like the Knights are going to take a timeout here.
And that's a tactical timeout, as Greg Gowdy is a fish out of water there on the offensive side of things, Jim. Really stuck in a tough situation there in the back corner. Casey Rich might have made it there just in time to bail him out of that situation, but a smart timeout called by the Knights as they have their first offensive possession of this second quarter and an opportunity to get back in this.
And Hampden-Sydney, obviously with a 3-goal lead here, so Jason Lamb wants to take that timeout, make sure while he's got the ball on offense that they can pick up their 3rd goal of the game.
And you'll look for the Knights to involve a lot more of their players on the offensive side of things. Obviously, Casey Rich and Sean Lamb always involved, but you look for players like Anthony Good and Brady Cook and Spencer Tunick and even Ryan Larson to get involved in the offensive production here.
You look at the schedule for the Knights lacrosse team. They've got 2 back-to-back road games coming up in the Capital Conference, as they'll be getting back into Capital play Saturday at St. Mary's, and then 1 week from today on the road at Christopher Newport. In fact, their next 6 games will be Capital Conference games. After today, they only have 1 non-conference game left on the schedule. That's Virginia Wesleyan, another ODAC team, on April the 12th. Outside of today and April the 12th, their remaining games are all conference games.
And the Knights are super excited to get back into conference play, as the Knights took their first trip to the Capital Athletic Conference playoffs last season. They fully expect to return to the playoffs this year and even make a deeper run, as will have a tough schedule well ahead of them against, especially and most notably, York College of Pennsylvania, who's ranked, and number 1 ranked Salisbury University, the top-ranked Division III lacrosse team in the country.
Yeah, with those tough games, those tough home games coming up, they've already won at Marymount back, of course, in February. You almost, you'd love to win them all, obviously, Jake, but I would think a split of the St. Mary's and Christopher Newport games on the road would almost be necessary, with Salisbury coming right after that, and then Mary Washington, then Frostburg and York all at home.
That's probably an accurate assumption.
So the Knights will, first and foremost, try to win this non-conference matchup with the Tigers, trailing here by 3, as we are 13 and a half minutes away from halftime. Great move there by Lamb. Great save, though, by Renfro. And Hampden-Sydney able to come away with it. Another good look for Sean Lamb right in front of the goal, but Renfro, the sophomore goalkeeper for the Hampden-Sydney Tigers, making the play.
Renfro just having himself a day thus far, Jim, in the first really 17 minutes of play in this entire game, with some really quick reflexes and stopping some really good shots, mainly by Brady Cook and 2 by Sean Lamb now, where the Knights could easily have 5 points, but Renfro with the great goalkeeping ability.
And Renfro's got some size, too. He is 6'3", 230, compared to the goalkeeper for the Knights, Franklin, who is 5'9", 175 pounds.
That's a pretty big difference. And it certainly helps when you can fill up that goal just by way of standing in it.
6 inches and over 50 pounds difference. So Hampden-Sydney on the attack again, already with a 3-goal lead. They've had their share of turnovers, but they've been successful when they've actually taken shots, although Franklin has played much better since the opening minutes of the first quarter. Hampden-Sydney with a player right on the doorstep.
And you see
Duncan Morris.
You see the Knights with that adjustment immediately as it's Morris looking for that sneaky right post goal once again. But you could see Ryan Larson crash down with Greg Gowdy there on the right post.
You also see number 11 flashing into the middle. Here's Shaheen outside. Nice pass and a goal scored by Connor Poole. Nice pass by Hampden-Sydney, and Connor Poole picks up his 11th goal of the season, and now the Tigers have their biggest lead so far in this first half, 6-2.
And that wasn't a bad defensive outing by the Knights whatsoever, as the Knights really forced Hampden-Sydney to really divvy the ball out and use up a lot of time in order to create that goal.
Nice pass, though. I didn't see who made the pass, but it was an excellent assist.
It was a great assist to Connor Poole, who made the great cut right over the middle. And that's, as you can see there, Hampden-Sydney's ability to adapt to the adjustments that the Knights have made defensively since the first quarter.
Number 41, Booth, has been very successful on these draws. This time it looks like the Knights might have a shot at it. Nope, going to be picked up, it looks like, by the Tigers. Scramble for the loose ball. And finally the Tigers come away with it. Scooped up by Henry. Number 1, Ken Henry. Those draws, those face-offs, Jake, really make so much of a difference as to which team's going to have possession and which team's going to have a shot at scoring goals.
And, we failed to mention that after the end of the first quarter. We said, how can the Knights get more goal-scoring opportunities? It's not just on the defensive side of things. The face-off is just a great way to give your team possession without even having to make the defense create those possessions for you. So that's also a very good thing to be talking about.
Yeah, the face-off so important. It not only gives you a chance to go on offense, but it keeps the other team away from the offense. Knights trying to get it on the Hampden-Sydney turnover, and they scoop up the ball. And Greg Gowdy.
That's good movement by the Knights to be able to get the clearance. Derek Marks running up the field. And we've seen his ability to go score as well. Marks is going to take a long
shot and get blasted outside. About 15 yards away from the goal, and Marks wound up. And he took a real shot, too.
And Mark's not happy, looking for maybe an illegal hit or unnecessary roughness. I'm not sure which, but looked like a pretty clean hit on the shot.
And so just like that, the Tigers are back on the attack with a 4-goal lead. They're working on the doorstep. Good save there by Franklin. Stopping that shot by Duncan Morris.
And the Knights almost got the exact same kind of defensive pressure on Morris there. A little less that time than they did the first time here in the second quarter, rather. But great save by Carson Franklin to stop Morris from getting yet another goal in this game.
And now the Knights will go on the attack. Sean Lamb, who's had some good looks today, but yet to score, or actually has 1 goal. Looks like Jason Lamb, the coach of the Knights, with some questions for the referee. Might be going back to that last hit, maybe, that Marks took.
It very well could be.
The Jarless, number 17, with it over to Lamb. Knights recognize down by 4 how important this trip is under the offensive area. It's Casey Rich with a little bit of a clear out, trying to go one-on-one, looking for an opening. He's triple teamed, lost the ball, finally gets it away to a teammate, Lamb.
You can see Hampden-Sydney there immediately double teaming Casey Rich the second he got the ball.
Lamb passes to the left, and it goes by Larson.
And right there, Hampden-Sydney giving the Knights a taste of their own medicine a little bit on the defensive side of things and just putting on enough pressure where to the Knights eventually creating their own turnover there with the bad pass.
So the Knights had a great chance to cut the lead down to 3, but now Hampden-Sydney is right back into the offensive area with a 4-goal lead. Pass across the middle, and another score by Connor Poole. As pretty much like the last time, he flashed from left to right, cut across the middle, got the pass, and beats Franklin, the goalkeeper for the Knights, and now Hampden-Sydney with a 5-goal lead.
And that goal was identical to the last one for Hampden-Sydney, as it was Connor Poole coming right across the middle and able to create yet another goal against the Knights. And that's the really hard thing about this game, Jim, is with every given possession, you have the opportunity to gain a point back or go down 2, basically. So right there, the Knights could have only been down 3 had they scored, but instead they gave up the ball, and now they're down 5 rather than only being down 3.
And again, it's only the first half, but the way Hampden-Sydney's been clicking offensively for the most part and winning these draws, like right there, being down 5 really hurts. Now, a good jar there by Logan Lund to blast the ball loose, and so here comes the Knights with the ball.
And the Knights really, really need this possession to turn into a goal if they're going to keep this in hand here coming in to the last portion of the second quarter, rather.
Gowdy lost the ball, scooped up momentarily by Hampden-Sydney, retrieved by Sean Lamb. Lamb with a good split of the double team, but he lost the ball, and now Hampden-Sydney is right back with it. Boy, close there for Lamb, able to split a double team, but while he was trying to split 2 defenders, he lost the ball.
And I'm not sure whether tripping is legal or not in the game of lacrosse, but it looked like number 20, Cade Rich there, went and kicked the legs of Renfro out, but no call.
7:20 to go, second quarter. Hampden-Sydney on top here by 5, trying to add to a 5-goal lead. Now with this 5-goal lead, it looks like Hampden-Sydney's going to really slow things down. Or perhaps they're just trying to lull the Knights to sleep and maybe slide somebody either underneath or across. You can see Hampden-Sydney getting a little closer, looking for the shot here. Shaheen will take the shot, blocked away by Franklin. Well, Shaheen came in with 20 goals in 7 games, and he's been blank so far in this first half, but he's been picked up by his teammates.
And that's the danger of being able to create lots of goal-scoring opportunities for multiple players, is you don't necessarily need Chandler Shaheen if you're Hampden-Sydney to win a ball game. You've got plenty of other guys who can do it for you. And so far today, that's exactly what's happening.
Hampden-Sydney coming off a 12-9 loss to Washington Lee. Pass across the middle, batted away by the Knights. Ball battled for momentarily. It looked like Cook had a chance at it. And finally, Cook comes away with it. Here's Cook trying to move up to the attack area. Brady Cook, the sophomore. Spins through a defender, but his shot sails way over the cage. See the stats dominated here by Hampden-Sydney. 12 shots on goal, 7 goals for the game so far. Sean Lamb trying to make a move from behind. Casey Rich has just had a hard time, Jake, getting involved in the offense here in this first half. Has the 1 goal.
Casey Rich is a well-known lacrosse player in the area, both in the Capital Athletic Conference especially, and obviously the ODAC with surrounding teams. And they know exactly what he's capable of. And you better believe that at the beginning of the majority of games, they've called his number already and will have him well guarded during every game. But that's not to say that Casey Rich can also still make goals happen even in that extreme pressure.
Ryan Larson's got it now. Larson's got 2 goals on the season. Out to Lamb. Ball jarred loose, picked up by Hampden-Sydney. Here come the Tigers with a 5-goal lead. Very aggressive defense by Hampden-Sydney. Really spelling some problems here for Casey Rich and Sean Lamb. Knights only have 2 goals so far. They scored 15 the other day against Merchant Marine, but of course earlier, a few weeks ago, they only scored 4 at home against Guilford. Turnover for Hampden-Sydney, it looks like. Looks like Hampden-Sydney will maintain control of the ball.
And I guess it was a deflection from the Knights.
Shaheen was looking like he was going to wind up and take a shot. Pass goes over to the right, knocked away. Ball on the ground. Wild scramble for it. And looks like the Knights are going to have it with 3:35 to go till halftime. Knights really need a few goals before halftime, trying to cut into this 5-goal lead for Hampden-Sydney. Franklin looking for someone to pass it to. Trying to get it over to Larson. Hampden-Sydney looks like they're going to have it.
And the Knights really need to get the ball moving. Ball movement is pivotal in the game of possession, as well as just creating opportunities wherever you are, whether it's goal-scoring opportunities or just giving yourself the opportunity to get into the attacking half, and that was the case. And in order to move the ball around, you also have to have players moving and getting open. And it looks like the Knights are having a little bit of trouble finding open players right now and moving the ball around to give themselves opportunities to not only score, but just get into the attacking half.
Hasn't been a problem in this first half for Hampden-Sydney for the most part. And they've really gone with really 3 players in Hunter Brown, Duncan Morris, and also of late Connor Poole, number 3, who's been able to get a couple of goals himself. And there's Shaheen. So Shaheen makes it 8-2, and that's his 21st goal of the season.
And he was wide open about 10 yards right in front of the goal, went with just the light right-handed shot, looking more for accuracy rather than power, and just found perfectly the upper right corner of the goal over the left shoulder of Carson Franklin there on the Knights.
And so now the Tigers with their biggest lead of this first half, 8-2, as Wilson Booth and Logan Lund will do this draw, and we'll see if Booth, who's been very successful, especially in the second quarter, winning draws, if he can win this draw. Hampden-Sydney now with a 6-goal lead, though. It's the biggest lead so far for the Tigers. Tigers with another possession. And the Knights here, Jake, are in danger of falling behind by 7, which would be a tough deficit to come back from.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Jim. The 7, even 6 is a lot, but 7, you definitely don't want it to get any worse from here. With 2 minutes remaining here in the first half, the Knights are going to look for opportunities to dig back into this lead that Hampden-Sydney has accumulated over these first 2 quarters.
Didn't see what happened to the injured Tiger.
That looks like number 25, Jay Moss, on the defensive side of things. If I'm reading that 5 right, on the right side of his jersey, hope he's okay. And this will be a good opportunity for the Knights to draw up some more strategy here during this injury timeout. And the Knights need it as they look for opportunities to get the ball into the back of the net, as they've only done twice so far this half, which is one of their lowest producing halves of the season so far. Hampden-Sydney doing a good job at really thwarting the Knights on the offensive side of things.
Yeah, the Knights for the most part this season haven't had any problems generating offense. They scored 16 of their victory at Marymount. also scored 11 with the win over Bridgewater in overtime, 14 against Birmingham Southern when they made the trip to Knoxville, Tennessee. Even in the loss to Merchant Marine, they scored 15. But right now, this game is shaping up a lot, maybe like the Guilford game where the Knights only scored 4 total goals against Guilford and lost that 14-4.
And you'd hope not to see a repeated result here against the Tigers of Hampden-Sydney like you did against Guilford, which is interesting that they're both ODAC teams, Jim. You almost wonder if maybe it's the ODAC style of play.
Although the Knights did
isn't really feasible, but
yeah, the Knights did beat Bridgewater, another ODAC team, 11-10, and of course they still have Virginia Wesleyan coming up in April, their final non-conference game. Good to see number 25 Moss come off the field. But you brought up a good point, Jake, and you mentioned trying to get more and more players involved offensively for the Knights, and you can see it for Hampden-Sydney today. Shaheen just picked up his first goal, but 3 or 4 other players have really been involved offensively for Hampden-Sydney. Again, they came in with 5 total players with double figures in goals scored this season. You can see how effective they are when they don't rely on any 1 or 2 players. So here we go, Hampden-Sydney with the 6-goal lead. Might be too much time for Hampden-Sydney to take up the entire minute 43 before halftime. But right now the Tigers aren't in any hurry, it looks like. Going around the perimeter, just passing the ball.
And their lead is comfortable enough to where they don't really have to be in a hurry. They're obviously looking to create more goals before the end of the half and especially for the rest of the game, but they're going to be a little more methodical and eat up as much time as they can in the process.
Left side shot, score. Bullet shot from Ian Levin. And Levin, who came in with 13 goals on the season, puts Hampden-Sydney on top now by 7. So it's still 65 seconds left till halftime.
And just given enough space to be able to make that shot. And as you said, with the absolute bullet, he really spared no muscular exertion on that shot, Jim.
Yeah,
that was an absolutely powerful shot.
Not a whole lot Franklin, the goalkeeper, could do with a shot like that.
And what's even more impressive is that usually the more powerful the shot, the less accurate it is, and that shot was absolutely right on the money.
Logan Lund wins the face-off. Important there for the Knights. We'll see if they can score right before halftime. Trailing now by 7. Lamb trying to move down the left side, fires a shot. Another save by Renfro. Boy, Mitch Renfro, I know that we focus on the goal scorers for Hampden-Sydney, but Renfro's been doing a great job in goal for the Tigers.
You aren't kidding, Jim. And, you love to see that kind of defensive production out of your goalkeeper.
Look out here for Hampden-Sydney. They're not done yet here in this first half. They still got 30 seconds to work with. They're quickly into the offensive area looking for their 10th goal of this first half. 11 is right in the middle. Timeout is taken with 19 seconds to go.
And that timeout will be taken by Hampden-Sydney. And you wonder if they're looking to create just another goal-scoring opportunity in these last 19 seconds, Jim, as, you can't imagine they're trying to save time or anything like that.
No, you wonder if they've got a special play they offensively draw up when they've got 10 or 15 seconds to work with.
And that's probably the case here. I mean, that's really the only thing you can think of with 19 seconds remaining and calling a timeout. They must be looking for another goal going into halftime.
Remember, the Knights trailed at 1.4-1, got a goal 4-2. It was the Casey Rich goal, I believe, that cut that lead down to 2. And since then, Hampden-Sydney has been able to rip off 5 unanswered goals.
And the Knights really have to do a better job at answering on the defensive side of things and finding a way to stop Hampden-Sydney's offensive production. They're really cutting the Knights up on the defensive side of things, and you really wonder what's going on in Coach Jason Lamb's mind and how he plans on dealing with this at halftime.
And right now, defensively, they have to make sure Hampden-Sydney doesn't pick up a 10th goal here in the final 19 seconds.
And that's the objective. You'd love to get a goal of your own before halftime, but at this point with 19 seconds remaining, the main and number one thing on the Knights' mind here is no goal for Hampden-Sydney in this last 20 seconds.
So we'll see if the Knights can just stave off Hampden-Sydney in the final 19 seconds to keep this deficit at 7 and not let it grow to 8. Tigers with 13 seconds to work with. Oh, nice pass in the middle, and another goal scored by Connor Poole, the junior, who has scored all of his goals by floating into the middle right in front of the goal, getting a pass and scoring again. Poole, 3 goals in this second quarter, I believe. I believe all his goals have been in the second period, and they've all been where he's kind of floated right in front of the goal.
And that happened so quickly and seemingly easily, Jim, that you wonder if that's exactly the way they drew it up. It was just pass, pass, pass right in front of the goal and point-blank shot.
And now the Knights trail by 8 with just 10 seconds to go till halftime.
And as long as Logan Lund can win this, that's plenty of time, but it's also equally plenty of time for Hampden-Sydney to get another shot off.
And they did get a shot off, blocked away by Franklin. Wow, if that shot had gone in, the Knights really would have been in trouble. Right now, as is, they're facing an 8-goal deficit as we are at halftime. 10-2, Hampden-Sydney on top.
And the Knights certainly with room for adjustment here at halftime. I'd be interested to be on a fly on the wall during the Knights' halftime speech from Coach Lamb and Coach Scotty Winterton to see really the adjustments they make going in to this second half to get themselves back into it. You know, they're down 8 points, 10-2 as the halftime score, Hampden-Sydney leading against Southern Virginia University, but with another half of play, the Knights certainly aren't down and out.
Down by 8. What's the bigger focus, you think, that Jason Lamb's more concerned about getting more people involved on offense or just trying to find a way to stop the Tigers offensively?
Well, you know, obviously you want as many people involved offensively as you can, but you got to get the ball in the offensive half first. And I guess that's what comes first in this game is you can't get anyone involved until the ball's on the offensive side of things. And right now it seems that the ball's not really on the offensive side of things as much as the Knights would really like it to be. So I imagine Coach Lamb's really going to be making lots of adjustments in that the Knights are able to get more offensive possessions.
And right now down 10-2 at halftime. It's been all Hampden-Sydney. Shaheen, their top goal scorer, he's got 1 goal, and they've been able to spread it around. But the person who's been doing a lot of the damage here of late is number 3, Connor Poole, floating across the middle and getting good passes and scoring 3 goals.
You're not kidding. Connor Poole really getting involved in the second part of the first half with a lot of those great cuts right in front of the goal, and you got to give credit to the Hampden-Sydney offense for getting the good assists to Connor Poole, who's making the good cuts, but also number 8, Duncan Morris, in the first part of the first half, really with the offensive production, lurking around the right post of the goal and able to create a lot of trouble initially for Hampden-Sydney.
So Hampden-Sydney on top here at halftime. Halftime score, Hampden-Sydney 10 and Southern Virginia University 2. We'll break for this timeout here from the fields at Southern Virginia University.
High school, I never felt really pushed, and I kind of lost a love of learning. When you can have a whole semester of classes where every one of your professors, you can just say, like, I have an amazing professor, but for every class, I just don't think that happens everywhere else. There's true friendships that develop here. I have good friends from another college, I have good friends from high school, but I have great friends here.
My name is Bubba Eisenhower, and I'm a Knight.
You get out what you put in, or actually you get out probably more than you put in. But if you put in effort, you'll always be blessed for that.
These participants have never experienced mission life before, so they've never experienced working with a companion, teaching with a companion, eating with a companion.
Every kid is completely different, so each kid needs to progress in different ways, and they have different strengths and weaknesses when they come in.
Just being here, I've felt so much love from God and from everybody here.
being with all these different youth and leaders and returned missionaries, the Spirit is definitely here.
I thought if you knew your doctrine, then you can teach a lesson. But the thing is, you need to invite the Spirit, because sometimes we don't know the things that are going on in other people's life, and the Spirit tells us those things.
As you teach about the Spirit, as you learn about the nature of the Spirit, what the Holy Ghost can do, all the different hats the Holy Ghost wears. If you come here and you want to get better and you want to improve yourself and prepare yourself to be a missionary, you're going to do that.
When I came to Southern Virginia University, I wanted to grow as a person. I knew that if I were able to come to this environment, I would grow academically, personally, and spiritually. I've made more friends here than I ever could have imagined. Some of my best friends are the professors at the school. At Southern Virginia University, I've had more opportunities to be involved than I would have had anywhere else. This is the school that will change your life. My name is Kirsten Lawrence, and I'm a Knight.
Welcome back to the fields at Southern Virginia University. Jim Bresnahan, Jake McMahon here bringing you men's lacrosse action. Hampden-Sydney is on top here at halftime, 10-2. The Tigers on top of the Southern Virginia University Knights. The Tigers led 5-2 at the end of one, Jake, and shut out the Knights in that second period, 5-0.
Yeah, as we mentioned going into halftime, Jim, you know, the Tigers of Hampden-Sydney really getting a lot of offensive production from number 3, Connor Poole, as well as number 8, Duncan Morris. Number 7, Hunter Brown, adding another 2 goals. And then the leading scorer for the Tigers finally getting a goal there in the first half, number 5, Chandler Shaheen, getting his first blood against the Knights in the first half to go up. Well, that was 9-2, and then they got the one more to go up 10-2 on the Knight side of things. None other than Casey Rich and Sean Lamb with the 2 goals.
And the face-offs in that first period, Hampden-Sydney won 5 out of 8, but they won 5 of 6 in the second period. They really dominated that second quarter, obviously.
Absolutely, Jim, and it shows. As you said, the Knights were shut out 5-0 there in the second quarter, and the Knights really struggled to just get offensive possession.
Hampden-Sydney shots in the first half, 24. Southern Virginia just had 8. And the Tigers ready to go here with a quick pass down low and another goal just off the bat by Duncan Morris. So Morris slides into that familiar spot just to the right of the goal and picks up another goal. That's his 4th goal today.
And you see the communication there following the goal between number 4, Matt Gowdy, and number 40, Colin Maxfield, as it looked like number 7, Hunter Brown, was getting ready to unload a shot. You saw both Colin Maxfield and Greg Gowdy bite to walk up to defend that shot, leaving number 8, Duncan Morris, wide open once again on the right side of the goal. And for Hunter Brown, that was no question getting the assist there on the goal. Hampden-Sydney now leading 11-2 over the Knights.
So the Knights now trail by 9. That's their biggest deficit so far today. I know we've really focused on the goal scorers here, but 2 other stars for Hampden-Sydney today. Wilson Booth, who's been doing the face-offs and winning the draws, and he wins another one. And also number 13, Mitch Renfro, the goalkeeper for Hampden-Sydney, who's only given up a couple of goals today for the Knights, one by Casey Rich, the other by Sean Lamb. Knights, again, just only had 8 shots compared to 24 for Hampden-Sydney in that first half. And the second half not getting off to a good start so far for the Knights, who've given up a goal. Hampden-Sydney now has scored, I believe, 7 straight goals. It was 4-2 in the first quarter, and Hampden-Sydney scored a goal to end the quarter, and they have dominated since then. They have scored 7 straight unanswered goals. And the Tigers on the attack here offensively again after another one draw by Wilson Booth. They lose the ball, but it's scooped back up by Luke Cashier. Looks like some new faces out there for Hampden-Sydney offensively as they work some new players in maybe just to get a chance to try some new folks offensively. Nice pass down low. And a great pass went into Jack Little. Somehow, some way, the Knights are going to have to find a way to stop those passes because Hampden-Sydney is just finding an easy way to get the passes down low, Jake.
And that's for sure. The Knights get away with one there. Hampden-Sydney will maintain possession. But good job by the Knights to get out of that. What could have been another goal-scoring opportunity for Hampden-Sydney.
This is Morris, number 8, on the right side. Now they go back to Shaheen. Pulls out front. He's got 3 goals. He's out on top. Tigers work somebody towards the middle. Shot is taken by Jack Detzer. Unsuccessfully, and the Knights are able to stop Hampden-Sydney that time offensively. Sean Lamb will bring it into the attack area, or attempt to at least. He tries to go through a double team, is knocked to the turf, loses the ball.
And that's where you need the ball movement that we talked about in the first half. The Knights not doing a really great job at getting the ball moving around. And on that particular situation, I'm not sure whether there were players not getting open or whether Sean Lamb maybe just wasn't keeping his head up to see what players were open. But the Knights really need to get ball movement. You can't expect one player to do it all on their own.
And as we've seen so far here, Jake, the referees are going to let them play. It's going to be a physical game today. Haven't seen too many calls.
And in a way, you kind of like that. You like to be able to allow the players to play pretty physically. Obviously, the number one goal in officiating is player safety. And so far, so good. We've had one injury, although the player for Hampden-Sydney was able to walk off on their own accord. But so far, the referees are, like you said, Jim, allowing the players to play physically, and it's allowed the game flow to keep moving pretty well.
Poole tried to pass that to number 11, and unsuccessfully, so the Knights will have it on the takeover. But there's a loose ball right in front of the goalkeeper, or the goal, and it's picked up by Spencer Tunick. Near disaster there for the Knights. Knights have not scored for quite a while. Casey Rich able to get the last goal for the Knights, the second goal of the game, and the Knights have not scored since then. That's way back in the first quarter. So the Knights have probably been shut out maybe for at least 20, 25 minutes here.
If the Knights are going to get back into this game, Jim, it's going to have to start now. You know, as we said at halftime, a whole half of play is enough time to get back into a game, even from a deficit like this. But if you are going to get back, you need to start now. The more time you wait, the less time you give yourself to make a great comeback.
Casey Rich scored with 7 minutes to go in the first quarter. So you're talking about 28 minutes or so of the Knights not even being able to get on the scoreboard.
And as you can see, the Knights not moving the ball around really at all. Brady Cook really danced around there in the backfield for a long time before even making an attempted pass. And sure enough, the Knights give up the ball once again. And you have to wonder if maybe that's one of the main issues for the Knights, is that they're just not getting the ball movement that they need.
And you wonder if it's maybe just at this point being down by 9, or if it's the weather, which is obviously very, very tough for both teams out there, the cold temperatures and the wind. Hopefully the Knights can straighten out their problems in the remainder of this game, Jake, but certainly get ready for their second Capital Conference game of the season coming up on the road on Saturday at St. Mary's, Saturday at 2 o'clock.
And the Knights hoping for a little bit warmer weather in that game.
That one off the post. Shot taken by number 11 for Hampden-Sydney. Going to guess if it's anything like our weather forecast on Saturday and up in St. Mary's, Maryland, maybe temperatures probably in the 50s, which would be a heat wave compared to today.
You're not kidding. Apparently it's about 30 degrees out here, but with the wind chill, Jim, it feels like 5 degrees.
Yeah, I figure it's got to be maybe at least 20 or 15 with the wind chill. Shaheen lost the ball. Good defense there by the Knights. Good play, it looked like, by Derek Marks, as Tunick will try to bring it up. Gets it over to Brady Cook. Now Casey Rich, who got the last night's goal way back midway through the first quarter. Another Knights turnover. Didn't take long for Hampden-Sydney to go from defense to offense. Tigers trying to work it close for a shot. Nice pass in the middle. And it was a goal by Hunter Brown.
And Hunter Brown was left wide open there, right in front of the goal, Jim. And there's not much else you can say for that goal, other than you'd hope he'd make that shot.
Yeah, radically
sure enough, he did.
different. Radically different offenses we're seeing, at least right now at this stage of the game, whereas Hampden-Sydney is moving and passing quite a lot and finding open men to pass to. It's like almost 180 degrees the opposite direction when the Knights are on offense right now.
You're exactly right, Jim, and you have to wonder, is there really a right way or a wrong way to play offense? And right now you'd probably say yeah. Hampden-Sydney's way seems to be working out for him pretty well, and you'd like to see the Knights maybe take some notes. But the Knights still with opportunities and lots of offensive firepower.
Logan Lund almost had that draw one. The ball's bouncing around. Scramble for it. Each team still trying to pick it up. And finally, Colin Maxfield comes away with it. Had it, but now it's back to Hampden-Sydney. Boy, when the Knights get possession, they don't last long. Good play there by Sean Lamb to jar the ball loose.
And it looks like we will have a penalty against Sean Lamb. I wondered if it was a clean hit. It looked for initially that it was a clean hit, but the referee must have saw something a little bit different. Maybe leading with one of his arms rather than just leading with the stick and with both hands on the stick.
To Sean Lamb right now, and that's going to put the Knights, who are already at a 10-goal disadvantage right now, trailing 12-2. Numerically, they'll be at a disadvantage now with that penalty against Lamb.
And with Colin Maxfield running down the field, getting the clearance for the Knights and putting the ball in the attacking half here on this possession, you almost would have liked for Maxfield to continue attacking the goals. It looked like he had a pretty wide open lane, but rather he elected to turn his back to the goal, turn back. And when he turned back, he didn't realize he had 2 or 3 Hampden-Sydney defenders on him already. He probably would have been better suited just going for the goal and seeing if he could create a goal.
Well, you wonder how often those defensive players who really are more defensive-oriented than offensive-oriented, how often perhaps they're just not really comfortable in that situation.
And that's probably definitely the case there, Jim, is Colin recognized that he was a defensive player. But then again, you do see defensive players scoring from time to time.
Yep.
Derek Marks, one for the Knights who I've seen score multiple times in his career here.
Tigers, again, an open man right on the doorstep, and another easy goal for Hampden-Sydney. That time it is number 11, Ian Levin, completely left alone on the left side of the goal.
And right now the Knights just absolutely falling apart on the defensive side of things, and Hampden-Sydney just taking pure advantage of it. It's really hard to say what the Knights can do to get back in this game right now, as momentum seems to be full-fledged, the whole 9 yards in favor of the Tigers.
Don't forget, we've got baseball coming up for you on Saturday from Rockbridge County High School. Southern Virginia is scheduled to host a doubleheader against Wesley Saturday at noon and second game at 3 o'clock. And we've also got some rain in the forecast Friday night into Saturday morning, so we'll see if that baseball doubleheader on Saturday moves forward. Weather's been wreaking havoc this week. We've been able to get men's lacrosse underway today, and, of course, women's lacrosse is in Hilton Head, South Carolina, but women's softball on Tuesday was a doubleheader was wiped out. They're scheduled to play at Sweetbriar on Thursday, and even men's baseball today, a home game against Frostburg got wiped out by the temperatures, the wind, you name it. We've gone from the chilly temperatures and the high winds, of course, earlier Monday night into Tuesday. We had a little bit of snow, not too much. Looks like it's the last blast of winter. When you look at the forecast, it's nothing but 40s, 50s, and back into the 60s. And, of course, spring officially starts next week. So the Knights down here by 11 as we near the 6-minute mark of this third quarter. Knights have not scored since the 7-minute mark of the first quarter. So you're talking over 30 minutes where the Knights have been held scoreless. At one point in the first quarter, this was a 4-2 game. Hampden-Sydney has run off 9 unanswered goals. And again, an open player flashing across the middle. That was Luke Cashier, but that time Franklin able to make the stop. But it looks like quite often either players posted up on the side of the goal, Jake, or just players flashing across the middle. Hampden-Sydney continues to have success with that.
And that's number 2, Luke Cassier, with 2 almost goals so far here in the second half, and they're really trying to work him into the mix as well. Luke Cassier, a senior from Midlothian, Virginia, over by Richmond. getting some of his first minutes of the game.
And the Knights on offense not really possessing the ball that long, and back comes the Tigers. I imagine we'll see more of this maybe in the fourth quarter, even though Hampden-Sydney might bring in some of its second and third teamers, where they perhaps get really conservative on offense, but they score yet again. Inside, it looked like that was Jack Hayden, a freshman, 6'1", 185 pounds, out of Apex, North Carolina, getting free.
And right now, just the same old for the Knights defense.
You can see the frustration of Carson Franklin, the goalkeeper for the Knights. And he's been really put in a tough situation. These shots, point-blank shots, Jake, are just almost impossible at times to stop.
Absolutely, especially when you give the offensive player, enough time to juke you left, juke you right, and then put it down low, or vice versa. Those are just really hard, and you got to feel for Carson Franklin, as really his teammates aren't giving him, a whole lot of help right in front of the goal.
Ryan Campbell, a freshman, is out there trying to take the draw now for Hampden-Sydney. Looks like the Knights are going to have it with 4:20 on the clock here in the third quarter. Hampden-Sydney has outscored the Knights 4-0 so far in this third quarter. They outscored them 5-0 in the second period. It was 10-2 at halftime. Knights are looking for their first goal here since the 7-minute mark of the first quarter. Lamb working, trying to get his second goal of the game. Shot blocked away. Another good block by Renfro, the goalkeeper for the Tigers. I don't know what's been more impressive today, Jake. It's the Hampden-Sydney offense, all the different players scoring, 14 goals total, or Renfro with his goalkeeping ability. As Casey Rich had his shot go off to the left.
And you see Casey Rich and Sean Lamb trying to take matters into their own hands here on this offensive possession for the Knights, and just trying to go one-on-one and trying to throw up some prayers right now, trying to get the Knights a little bit of momentum.
Lamb trying to work around. We don't see a whole lot of movement out there. You got Good right in the middle. I believe it's his first game back since the injury. Rich Larson entering the picture there. Shot taken by Tunick off to the left. Hampden-Sydney's ball. This was really a competitive game in the first quarter. The Knights only trailed at 1.4-2 after the Casey Rich goal. That was the last goal they've scored. They've been outscored 10-0. Completely different picture after the Knights only trailed by 3, 5-2 at the end of that first quarter. The last two quarters have been all Hampden-Sydney. Two shots on goal now for the Hampden-Sydney Tigers. Another pass thrown right into the middle. The shot was taken by John Burke, a sophomore, but it was kind of a half-hearted shot. And the Knights are able to grab it and try to head upfield. Spencer Tunick works around one man. Tunick has been kind of silent today. He came in with 6 goals, takes a shot, and I believe it's in. Let's see. No signal as yet. Nope, looked like maybe the goalkeeper able to make the stop.
Not sure exactly what the call was there, Jim. You could see Spencer Tunick turn around with his hands up in the air.
At one point I thought that he thought it went in. Tunick came in, the third leading goal scorer, right behind Lamb and Rich. Lamb with 10, Rich with 7, Tunick with 6. So it's going to be Knights ball with 2 minutes left on the clock here in the third quarter. Still 14-2, Hampden-Sydney on top. Sean Lamb's got it behind the cage. Haven't seen a whole lot of passing out of the Knights. It's really been Rich and Lamb. Nice pass to Lamb that time by Brady Cook, but his shot is deflected away.
Yeah, another save there for Renfro.
Lamb's had some open looks, or good opportunities at least, and Renfro, the sophomore goalkeeper for the Hampden-Sydney Tigers, has really just had a heck of a game in goal. Has not allowed a Knights goal since way back in the first period.
And this would be pretty unprecedented for the Knights as we enter the last minute of the third quarter. The Knights have gone 2 full quarters without a goal scored.
Knights, their lowest output of the season was that 14-4 loss to Guilford. Other than that, they've been able to go double digits as far as goals scored. They came in with 60 in 5 games, averaging 12 a game. But their last goal came with 7 minutes to go, basically, in the first quarter. So you're talking almost about 38 minutes or so the Knights have been shut out.
25 seconds remaining, and the Tigers really playing methodically here offensively. Just moving the ball around the perimeter.
Looking for someone to pass to in the middle with the clock now down to 11 seconds to go. Will the Tigers get off a shot before the end of the third quarter? Looks like it's not going to be the case. So we have come to the end of the third quarter, and Hampden-Sydney is on top here decisively, 14-2.
And you know, at this point, it's probably out of reach for the Knights, as the Knights are down 12 points in the last, in coming into the last 15 minutes of play here in this game against Hampden-Sydney. The Knights would have to have a beyond miraculous fourth quarter and able to come back, if they were able to come back. But the Knights at this point just trying to learn a lot from this loss against Hampden-Sydney today in preparation for St. Mary's and Capital Athletic Conference play. But we'll talk a little bit more about that as we break for a commercial break in between these quarters and we prepare for the last quarter of play here at the fields at Southern Virginia University.
Jim Resnahan, Jake McMahon, again back here at the fields at Southern Virginia University. All Hampden-Sydney after really the first quarter. It was 5-2 at the end of one quarter, 10-2 at halftime. Hampden-Sydney on top here big time as we start the fourth quarter of play, Jake. And as you mentioned right now, the Knights trailing by 12. They're just trying to build up a little momentum for the next contest coming up on Saturday at St. Mary's.
And the Knights getting into the Capital Athletic Conference play, as you know, we've mentioned multiple times in our past couple broadcasts, the Knights started really early with one kind of anomalous Capital Athletic Conference contest against Marymount back in February, where they won 16-14, but the Knights now getting in the thick of conference play against St. Mary's and then against Christopher Newport 4 days later before they return home to face the top dog, Salisbury University in the nation, here at the fields.
Knights on offense, trying to pick up their first goal since midway in the first quarter. That's Casey Rich looking to go one-on-one. Kicks it out to Lamb. Lamb's shot stopped again. Different goalkeeper this time making the stop. Looked like, was that Nick Steen maybe? Number 20, I think it is. Looked like a different goalkeeper making the stop against the Knights. And again, the Knights still looking for that first goal since.
We'll have to check that number next time the camera swings around that side of the field.
'27 was the goalkeeper, Nick Curry. He's a freshman, 5'11", 190 pounds, out of North Carolina. And he made an impressive stop just into the game here in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, getting the legs spread out a little bit and putting that net right on the ground and blocking yet another attempt from Sean Lamb, who's been getting pretty unlucky with some nice shots today.
Hampden-Sydney, one of their starters out of the game now with this 12-goal lead, working in some new players out on offense. Franklin bumps the Tiger down to the ground with the save as he was able to knock to the ground Jack Hayden, the freshman for Hampden-Sydney. If nothing else, it does show you how good the ODAC is in men's lacrosse. Hampden-Sydney winning here 14-2 against the Knights. Guilford beat the Knights 14-4. The Knights were able to go to Bridgewater and win that game in overtime 11-10. But, of course, Hampden-Sydney has defeated several Capital teams this season. We mentioned earlier in the pregame show they have defeated already this season Christopher Newport and Mary Washington.
And those are some pretty good opponents from the Capital Athletic Conference as well. Christopher Newport routinely making deep runs in the Capital Athletic Conference tournament in lacrosse as well. And so, as you can see, Hampden-Sydney playing, not only playing some good teams, but beating some good teams thus far in their season.
ODAC pretty good in men's lacrosse, pretty good in women's lacrosse. Earlier this season, I believe the Washington Lee women defeated Salisbury, and that's no easy task.
Absolutely. Salisbury just a powerhouse athletic university in general. You're happy with yourself any day you can go out and beat Salisbury.
Hampden-Sydney with the 12-goal lead. You know, if you're one of the second or third teamers into the game, chance to shine, even though you got a 12-goal lead, you really want to try to apply the pressure offensively. Even though at times here in the fourth quarter, I'm sure the Tigers will try to run the clock a little bit. And a goal scored again by Hampden-Sydney. I believe that might have been Seamus Byrne, a sophomore coming in from the left side.
And that is Seamus Byrne, the sophomore from Charlotte, North Carolina, getting possibly his first goal of the season. I can check the stats real quick, Jim.
Yeah, I believe it was. I don't see Byrne listed.
And it looks like this might be, in fact, Byrne's first minutes of the season, and hence his first goal, as you could hear the cheers coming from his sideline.
But Hampden-Sydney's been able to do that quite consistently throughout the day today, getting players open left or right of the goal for basically point-blank shots, unfortunately, against Carson Franklin, the freshman goalkeeper for the Knights. Logan Lund trying to win this face-off. His team down by 13. Involved with Ryan Campbell, freshman for Hampden-Sydney.
And the Knights with numbers is going to look to score quickly here.
Another block. The goalkeeper making the block, Nick Curry. And another great look there for the Knights offensively, just not able to score.
And these goalkeepers for Hampden-Sydney are just on task today, Jim.
Yeah,
really
Curry coming in here in the fourth quarter earlier. Mitch Renfro, the sophomore goalkeeper.
Just not letting anything past him this entire day, with the exception of those first two goals.
Curry coming into today had 15 minutes of playing time compared to Renfro's 405 minutes. So Curry's got a chance here in the fourth quarter probably to play the entire 15 minutes. And up his minute total for the season to a half hour. See how much more of this we see here as this fourth quarter unwinds here, Jake, where Hampden-Sydney pulls it out, just runs clock a little bit maybe. Knights sitting back defensively, not initiating play right now, allowing Hampden-Sydney to work it around the perimeter. Today, the Knights' next home game will not be until, I believe, a week from Saturday, and that opponent on the 25th will be Salisbury. Knights will have 2 road non-conference or conference games before Salisbury coming up on Saturday and next Wednesday. So after today, they'll really get back into the meat of their Capital Conference schedule after playing a Capital Conference game back in February against Marymount. And the Knights are going to have to really improve from today's performance, Jake, to get ready for Capital play. Another goal scored by Hampden-Sydney, outside again, and I believe that was Byrne again.
And that was Byrne with a beautiful distance shot.
So Byrne.
Assisted by I think that was number 26, Matt.
Yeah, it was 26.
Mac
You're right.
Dunyam, assisted by number 36, Seamus Byrne from behind the goal, who just saw him wide open. It was Dunyam that just took the wide open shot from distance, and just an impressive goal.
He's played a couple of games. He had an assist coming in, but that's his first goal of the season. And so the Tigers up that lead to 16-2, and right now the Knights, from their offensive standpoint, are just trying to break that long scoring drought. They haven't scored since the 7-minute mark, basically, of the first quarter.
It looks like I butchered his name a little bit. It's actually Matt Dignam, making it a lot harder than I needed to there, Jim. Digman, the freshman out of Midlothian, Virginia.
Lund wins the draw, tries to work it upfield himself, and loses it. So Logan Lund won the draw that time, but wasn't able to escape and maintain possession. And it looks like right now just some of the Knights, whenever they've got the ball offensively, are just trying to do maybe a lot of different things, maybe too much by any one particular player, perhaps. We've seen Sean Lamb, we've seen Casey Rich try to go one-on-one, trying to get that first goal since the 7-minute mark of the first period. This is Byrne, number 36, right behind the goal. Tigers led 10-2 at halftime. And they've outscored the Knights 6-0 here in the second half. You know, if you're Coach Lamb for the Knights here, Jake, do you basically burn this film and forget about it, or do you actually try to use this kind of game as a teaching tool?
I think the latter is certainly true. It's certainly true, Jim. You know, film, regardless of the outcome, can be extremely beneficial. Whether it's a win, you learn from your strengths, or you lose and you learn from your weaknesses.
Another goal for Hampden-Sydney. I believe that is Brooks Anderson, maybe number 32, getting the goal. And if it is, that's his first of the season. So a lot of second, third teamers here for Hampden-Sydney, really getting a lot of valuable playing time here in the second half and taking advantage of it. And now Hampden-Sydney will bring in Banks Cozart, number 34, freshman from Raleigh, North Carolina, to take this draw with Logan Lund. 13 unanswered goals now by the Tigers. This game was a 4-2 game back in the first quarter at one point, but now it's 17-2 Tigers. Tunick able to come away with that ball. Knights trying to snap this long scoring drought as we are under 8 minutes to go now here in the fourth quarter.
Tunick looked like he was able to blow past a couple of defenders there, but elects to take it back. And goes for the goal is Casey Rich as he gets his second goal of the game. The Knights in that scoring drought with 7 minutes remaining in the first quarter to 7 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter.
So Casey Rich with his second goal today, and for the season, Casey now with 9 goals. Lamb has the other goal today. He's got 11 for the season. And so the Knights snapped that long scoring drought. They had last scored with just over 7 minutes to go in the first quarter. They score now with 7 minutes to, basically 7 minutes and change to go here in the fourth quarter.
And what you'd love to see here, despite the fact that the Knights probably won't be able to come back from a 14-point deficit in just 7 minutes, is the Knights just need to keep scoring. Just need to get some momentum and gain some confidence at the end of this game. And regardless of the fact they can come back or not, that's going to be a foul against Hampden-Sydney. A little premature jump by number 33, Ryan Campbell. The Knights could gain a lot of confidence going into their next game against St. Mary's if they were able to gain some offensive steam and some face-off steam here at the end of this game.
If nothing else, just try to get some momentum, maybe some positive feelings going, especially about their offense, which has struggled today. Here's Casey Rich, who's got 2 goals today, fires a shot blocked away. One thing's for sure, you know, the starting goalkeeper, Renfro, is 6'3", 230. Curry, who's into the game now, is 5'11", 190, so he's about 5 inches shorter. And this is Lamb, left side, gets the goal. That's his second today.
And he'll put that in the top right corner of the goal behind a Curry.
He's got 12 for the season now. So Rich has 2, Lamb has 2, and the Knights have a couple of goals quickly in a matter of seconds after being shut out for 2 quarters. Hampden-Sydney came at 4-3 on the season. Knights 3-2 on the season. Lund trying to win that draw. It's picked up instead, though, by number 34, Cozart, for the Tigers.
Yeah, it looks like we might be catching some wind there. As you can see, our tower cam there getting a little shaky. We apologize for the shot. But the wind up here at the fields is brutal, which just adds to the hostile weather conditions that these players have to play in.
And we do want to salute our camera operators again. They are really doing a heck of a job today.
They really are.
Really do a heck of a job all season, but today in the brutal weather conditions.
Yeah, it's somewhat of a thankless job, you know, Jim being out there on the camera stand and just kind of freezing it out. But they do such a good job. I'm really grateful for them.
And we should also salute Josh, our director, who gave you some things to warm your hands inside the building today.
Yeah, we're inside this little shed here, Jim, but I'm still freezing cold. I couldn't imagine being outside. So thanks to our director here, Josh, for providing the hand warmers, which I've been sticking down my shirt and in my pockets, trying to warm every ounce of me up here.
We were outside for softball Saturday. I think it was in the 40s, though. Wasn't anything like this.
No, nothing like this.
Although you do see one of the Knights in shorts, and that is number 3, Brady Cook. I haven't seen too many others, except for maybe right there, obviously 36, is it? Or 26 for Hampden-Sydney. A few players actually have got short pants on, or relatively short pants, but not too many.
You better believe I wouldn't be in shorts today, Jim. I'd be one of the sweatpants guys.
Yeah, it just comes down to whether you want to freeze to death or be able to move. Just almost the 5-minute mark now. The Knights, who have been able to get 2 goals in a row, take it over, and now we'll see if the Knights can maybe make 3 straight goals. And there it is, Sean Lamb, 3rd goal today. Sean's got 3. Casey Rich has 2, and the Knights have 3 straight goals to cut a 17-2 lead down to 17-5.
And that was just an absolute laser beam there by Sean Lamb with the left-handed shot into the upper left corner of the goal over the shoulder of Nick Curry for Hampden-Sydney. And that just seemed to kind of be a punctuation mark, maybe a little frustration behind that shot there, Jim.
Lamb's got 3 goals today and 13 now for the season. So the Knights are making that little run that we talked about, Jake, where maybe they can get a little bit of momentum, a little bit of a positive feeling heading into that road Capital Conference Saturday at St. Mary's. Hampden-Sydney just trying to run a little clock here with the Big 12 goal lead. Now the Tigers on the attack. But Franklin picks up the loose ball.
And Marks with the impressive play there with his stick.
Yeah, scooped it up.
Just kind of moving it around right out of harm's way and scooping it right up. That's some impressive agility and movement.
Now Lamb knocked off his feet but held on to the ball. Goes over to Casey Rich, who's got 2 goals today. Casey wanted to do a spin move, spins back to the left, shoots off to the right. Knights have suddenly come alive, Jake, in the last 2-3 minutes after being basically dormant for 2 quarters.
And that's what you want. You don't want the Knights to be down on their luck or just kind of down in the dumps emotionally and mentally, especially as they get into Capital Athletic Conference play. It's the last thing they can do, actually. The Knights really need to be high in spirits as they get into CAC play because really that's what matters the most this season is how they do in the Capital Athletic Conference and if they can make a deep run in the playoffs.
Shot was blocked away. Grant Osterlin, new goalkeeper in there for the Tigers. He's a junior out of Colorado. I believe that's his first appearance today as a goalkeeper, or first appearance this season as a goalkeeper. And Lamb scores again.
And if you even give him a few inches of space, Sean Lamb's going to put it in the back of the net, and he's proven it thus far. Right now, he's just trying to take matters into his own hands and just throwing them up. And right now, they're landing.
His 4th goal. Yeah, back in the first, second, even into the 3rd quarter, Sean Lamb had some good looks, just couldn't get it to go, and suddenly he has come alive here in the 4th quarter. He's got 4 goals. Casey Rich has 2 goals today. Lamb's got 14 goals now for the season. And that is 4 straight goals now by the Knights after they trailed 17-2. Another 1 draw by Logan Lund. Rich's pass deflected away from Lamb. Still Knights ball with under 3 minutes to go. Casey Rich facing 3 opponents somehow comes away with the ball. Casey will fire a grounding shot and it is blocked away by the goalkeeper who then gets crushed. He was hit hard by Cade Rich, and the goalkeeper gets up slowly.
And Cade Rich delivering that shot inside the goalie circle. Maybe expressing a little bit of frustration there, and those are the kinds of hits that you just need to watch.
Although this is the 3rd goalkeeper for Hampden-Sydney, his first appearance of the season by the backup to the backup, Grant Osterlin, the junior. He's probably going, what did I do? Just 2:34 to go here in the 4th quarter. See Anthony Good there, number 27, his first appearance of the season today, and you just wonder how long it's going to take him to really get back in playing shape and to the point where he's really ready to contribute here for the Knights. Because when he's ready to go, he is a top goal scorer himself.
And it looks like they are going to pull number 38, Grant Osterland, out of the game. Even if only briefly. And it looks like number 20, Nick Steen, is going to make his entrance into the game now.
He's a sophomore, 6'1", 180, out of Purcellville, Virginia. He's the fourth goalkeeper of the game for Hampden-Sydney. Their top goalkeeper, of course, was number 13, Mitch Renfro, the sophomore, who stopped a lot of shots today, only allowed 2 goals himself. Time out on the field with 2:34 to go. Reminder, weather permitting, Saturday we'll have baseball for you. Southern Virginia hosting Wesley at Rockbridge County High School in a doubleheader Saturday at noon. Although we do have rain in the forecast Friday night into Saturday morning. We'll see how that plays out.
And the Knights on the baseball side of things initiating their Capital Athletic Conference play.
Yeah, they were supposed to play today against Frostburg, had that game canceled. Of course, also coming up in a matter of days, on Friday, it'll be Southern Virginia University men's volleyball in action. Another road trip, I believe, Pfeiffer, right?
Against Pfeiffer. Yeah. And Pfeiffer is in the same conference as King University, who the Knights just played. That is the Carolina Conference, or the Conference Carolinas is what it is. I always butcher that name. But that's NCAA Division II Conference Carolinas, as the Knights fell to King University this last Friday and take on Pfeiffer this Friday.
Not too many matches left for men's volleyball in the regular season.
No, and the Knights currently, if I'm not mistaken, was it 17-4 or 17-5?
Yeah,
17-5 currently, yeah. And the Knights having a great inaugural season in men's volleyball, and still the Knights, I'm sure, look most ahead with anticipation to their game against Marymount, who will not only be a Continental Volleyball Conference foe,
and
but
also
a ranked volleyball foe.
Probably also looking to head the next Wednesday, their last home match against James Madison on the 22nd. It's been an electric atmosphere at the barn for men's volleyball this season, the first season for men's volleyball. And I know the coaches, the players, the fans, they got to be excited when they look ahead a year to being in the Continental Conference and see how that goes in their second season next year.
Oh, I'm sure. And the Knights are certainly going to be happy to finally be a part of a conference in men's volleyball.
So after the penalty, here we go. Just 2:30 left in this game. 17-6, Hampden-Sydney on top. They jumped out to a 10-2 halftime lead, extended that lead to 17-2. Knights have scored the last 4 goals, though. Tigers working towards the middle. And Carson Franklin doing a pretty good job scooping that one up. He's played much better in goal here in the fourth quarter. Has faced fewer shots by Hampden-Sydney.
That's Kevin Huntsman for the Knights taking a few shots.
Gets it up to Ryan Larson.
And looks like we have a slashing penalty going to be called on the next stoppage.
Larson scores. Ryan Larson with the good low shot. That's his 3rd goal of the season. Knights have 5 straight goals with just a minute 26 to go.
And you like to see Ryan Larson get involved offensively, as he especially in his first years here playing lacrosse at Southern Virginia University, came in with tons of potential.
Yeah.
And he's such a talented player. You like to see him get involved offensively, as he hasn't been as involved in the goal-scoring effort as much as you'd like to have seen him. But
don't know
that
why
was a
that
great
is,
shot by him.
because when we talked about players who have the potential for getting more involved to join Sean Lamb and Casey Rich, that was one of the, in addition to Anthony Good, who's been injured, That was another player who came to mind immediately, was Ryan Larson.
Absolutely, and that shot there kind of showed his ability. As he went with somewhat of the unorthodox shot there. He looked more like a roll shot there on the ground and banked it in off that right post.
So Larson has his third goal of the season. Knights have scored 5 straight goals after Hampden-Sydney scored 13 straight goals.
And we have a little more elapsed time prior to this face-off as the referees take care of the slashing penalty against Hampden-Sydney. And I want to say that's a 2-minute penalty, which means Hampden-Sydney will play a man down for this last minute 26 seconds.
Knights will have possession, trying to score their 6th straight unanswered goal. And after Hampden-Sydney jumped on top 17-2, it was 10-2 at halftime. This is Lamb working towards the middle. A great pass, and Anthony Good gets his first goal of the season. Great to see Anthony getting involved.
And just like that, the Knights able to get 6 unanswered goals. They were down 17-2 here in the fourth quarter, now down 17-8.
Nice pass, though, also by Sean Lamb.
And a great pass there by Sean Lamb, able to get a couple more players involved. And like we said, prior to this goal-scoring effort here in the fourth quarter by the Knights, this is exactly what the Knights wanted to see, is just create lots of goals in the fourth quarter, create some offensive momentum, and maybe get some extra guys involved. And so far, they've been doing that with Anthony Good and Ryan Larson.
Yeah, you'd like to see guys like Tunick and Larson and Good really join Lamb and Casey Rich and maybe have 5 or 6 players who become top offensive threats, hopefully next Saturday on the road at St. Mary's. Win really picking up now with just 65 seconds to go in the game. Another one draw by Logan Lund. Greg Gowdy's got it. So the Knights did what they wanted to do here in the fourth quarter, Jake, by really establishing some momentum and some positive actions. And we'll see if this carries over on Saturday when they go visit St. Mary's, as Tunick works his way into the offensive area with 36 seconds to go. Now it'll be Hampden-Sydney's ball with under 33 seconds, down to 32 now. We'll see if this little flurry that the Knights have been able to get carries over.
And I saw the ripple off the side of the net there. It almost looked like the ball went in for a second there, Jim, but
Franklin looking for someone to get it upfield to. Fires it over the head of Larson.
It looks like the scorekeeper actually thought that was a goal as well, as you saw the score ticker go up to 18 for Hampden-Sydney and then back down to 17. And we will have one last timeout prior to the end of this game. As I'm sure the Knights are going to be looking for another goal in this last 20 seconds.
Well, hopefully the little flurry here the Knights have been able to come up with in the fourth quarter, Jake, will carry over to Saturday's game when they take on St. Mary's Saturday at 2 o'clock in Capital Play on the road.
And I couldn't help but chuckle a little bit there, Jim. In our last shot of the Knights huddle here during this timeout, you saw head trainer Chad Mahaffey in there with his scarf wrapped around his face, looking kind of like a ninja. To kind of give you a feeling for really how cold it is out there. You got to imagine the women's lacrosse team is enjoying themselves down there in Hilton Head, South Carolina right now.
Even though it was only 49 degrees.
That's true.
49,
much better than
49
30
beats,
with wind chill.
15 with wind chill, maybe. It's hard to estimate.
Last 20 seconds of play here, and we'll see what Hampden-Sydney elects to do. Maybe just kill some time or go for another goal.
Looks like they'll just kill out the clock here and run it down. And Hampden-Sydney with the victory today. They're going to improve to 5-3 on the season And Jake, the Knights dropped to 3-3 on the season now, their second straight loss, but they're able to pick it up in the fourth quarter, and we'll see if that little flurry the Knights had in the fourth quarter, 6 unanswered goals, if they can carry that over to Saturday when they visit St. Mary's Saturday at 2 o'clock in road Capital Conference action.
And the Knights are going to need to take that momentum into Capital Athletic Conference play. They did a good job at finally finding a little bit of steam offensively here in the fourth quarter as they went from 7 minutes remaining in the first quarter until 7 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter before getting past 2 goals, which was, pretty unprecedented for the Knights offense, but finally got 6 unanswered here in the fourth quarter, and the Knights looking to take that steam into, like you said, their second Capital Athletic Conference game against St. Mary's this Saturday.
That's going to wrap things up here from the fields at Southern Virginia University. Final score again, it was Hampden-Sydney defeating Southern Virginia 17-8. I'm Jim Bresnahan for Jake McMahon, Josh, and all of our production staff here at Southern Virginia University. Thanks again for joining us, everyone, for men's lacrosse action.